That was frost. They said it'd be a warm morning. Well, it's a nice morning. Blue sky, sun shining. A couple of weeks before Christmas, less than that now. Yeah, it's supposed to be a warm morning, but it's still only about 4 degrees above freezing at the moment. Just before Christmas every year I do this walk. It's about 10 miles, quite a trek. Starts and ends at Lyveden on the other side of Aldwincle. I don't know why I do it around Christmas, it's just always been a pre-Christmas thing that I do. So a few things to look at on the way around, but it's good exercise, so got to get out and enjoy the sunshine. First time I did this walk was about 15 years ago. On a day I was supposed to be picking the kids up from primary school straight afterwards. I'd allowed plenty of time, but I got lost, horribly lost, in the woods. So it stuck in my mind, it angered me that I'd failed, and I went out 2 weeks later to prove I could handle it, and I got lost again. Different place, but still got lost. So it's always been a walk that yeah, I'm still relatively obsessed with doing this walk once or twice a year, and I always do one just before Christmas. Don't know why, but it's just one of those traditions that I do. So yeah, go through some nice villages, mixed terrain, woodland. There'll be mud, I know there's going to be mud. Gonna have some fun, some Indiana Jones style puddle crossing coming up for sure, but it's usually a nice walk, so yeah, should be good. The buildings over there belong to the Welland Gliding Club. There's a grass strip just running across the centre of the picture there, which is their runway. The Welland Gliding Club was born out of the Perkins Engines Gliding Club in the 1950s. A bunch of people from Perkins Engines in the 1950s with a shared interest in gliding got together, formed a club, and basically hopped around some of the old airfields like Polbrook, RAF Westwoods, Wadenhoe, and a few other sites, trying to find somewhere where they could base their gliding club. Ended up here in, I think it was 1989, under the badge of the Welland Gliding Club, and they're still here today. Coming up now to the entrance to the glider field, and there's a poignant memorial here, so we'll just pop over and see. The memorial relates to an old Lancaster bomber crash over my shoulder behind me there in 1943. It had taken off from RAF Spilsby up in Lincolnshire with a full crew on board to test it out. It was a test flight and it came down here. Engine fire, crew were told to bail, but 3 of them sadly didn't get out and died here, and that's what the memorial is to. Sadly, the rest of the crew who survived the crash lost their lives subsequently in further missions. So I think it's a memorial to them as well. But it's good that it's remembered. We're in the middle of nowhere here, but yeah, every life mattered, and it's a nice little memorial. Right, it's time to get off the road now and into the woods. Probably means into the mud as well. getting a bit muddy now, but this part of the walk is always muddy. Just got to get through it. This is usually the worst bit. Back into the sun. Right, that's the path I'm supposed to take, straight across the field, or I can walk around the edge, which is a lot longer. It's a matter of how muddy it's going to be. What do you reckon? Looks a bit better further on, so we'll stick to the footpath route. I never mentioned earlier, the walk starts at Lyveden, and we're basically doing a circular route that takes us to the village of Aldwincle, and then we drop down by the river and walk along to Wadenhoe. Got to be careful, don't fall over here. But yeah, we walk along the river to Wadenhoe, where traditionally on this walk we pop in a King's Head and have a beer. That won't be happening today, unfortunately, such is the times. And then it's a return from Wadenhoe down a slightly shorter stretch to the car. So Wadenhoe's about 2/3 of the way around the walk, so always a good place to stop for a beer. But as I say, sadly can't do it without substantial meal. I ain't going to be doing a substantial meal, so, but yeah, that's the route. Those woods over to our left are Firmin Woods, or Firmin Wood. If we swing around to where we're heading towards that wood, which I think, if I remember right, is called Ladywood. And if you're into your lepidoptery, butterflies, as I was a few years back, you'll know all about these two woods, because they are one of the very few UK homes for the purple emperor butterfly, and they travel all over the country to come here. The purple emperor's only around for like 2 weeks in a year. If you turn up at these woods in those 2 weeks, there are dozens and dozens of cars that have travelled down, often overnight, in the hope of getting a photograph. It's a fantastic butterfly. I'll just put a picture of it up in the top corner of the screen. That's a video that I took about 5 or 6 years ago. Fantastic butterfly, unlike any other butterfly around. Big attitude. Emperor by name, emperor by nature. It is not scared of anybody. It'll come down, you can walk up to it, it won't fly away. It'll land on you. I've had them walking around on my hand. They like the salt that they can get off your skin. But as I say, they're very bold, very big, very beautiful, and not afraid of a whole lot. And they're very rare. There are not many woods in the whole of the UK where you can see them. There's websites dedicated to them. If ever you get a chance to come out and have a look, join the masses and get a photo, because yeah, they're stunning creatures. Let's what I hate about crossing this field, is it's the sort of mud that just gradually builds up on your boots. So by the time you reach the other side, you've got half a ton of mud hanging off your boots. It's the same every year. Nearly there. Oh, hallelujah, out of the mud. Much needed. First time I did this walk and came down this path, I don't know why, but I thought the path went to Aldwincle, so I stayed on it. An hour and a half later I was still on it, wondering where Aldwincle was. Such was my disorientation. I was actually going around in a big, huge circle through this very large wood, completely an hour and a half. Off plan. Eventually got back en route, but I'd lost so much time that when I then lost myself again on the way back, it was a disaster. Second time I knew I had to turn off. Second time I did this route, I knew I had to turn off to the left, and I did, but I took the wrong one and got lost again. Again I recovered it. It wasn't quite as bad as the first time, but yeah, I still got a bit nervous coming down this path. Thinking I'm going to get it wrong, but I won't, not this time, touch wood. One of the things that frustrated me most about getting lost twice on this path was the fact that actually there was a signpost on the route that I was supposed to have taken. I just never saw it, because in the summer months it's hidden by bushes and vegetation. It's actually on the left here. We should be able to see it now, but in summer it ain't no good because it's just buried. There it is, Lyveden Way footpath. That's what I needed to have taken the first couple of times I came here. But there you go, on the right track today. Right, coming up now to the turn towards Aldwincle. This is my Indiana Jones walk or path, because there's some serious puddles usually appear on this one. So hopefully not today, but I'm sure there will be some, just to test me out. Oh dear, okay, yeah. Easy, easy. Whoops. Oh dear. I like my woodland walks, but this time of year they're hard going because it's so unstable underfoot with the leaves and the mud. So it's always good to get out of that stretch into what will be fields very shortly. Anyone got a boat? This could get tricky. Could have been on the other side. Yeah. That was close. Been walking up this one now for about 20 minutes. I said at the outset this walk is mixed terrain, or a whole range of different terrains, and it is, and that's what makes it good. But I hate this section, always have done. It just goes on and on and on, and there's nothing to see, nothing to look at. The path is horrible, it's just got holes, and at this time of year puddles everywhere, and it's just never ending. You can see in the distance there's a hill. You go around over hills, round bends, and it still goes on. I mean, luckily I know, having done the walk many times before, But the village of Aldwincle is just beyond the hill in the distance, but it's still a horrible section of the walk. I could just, miss this bit out. Don't enjoy it at all, but it's got to be done. Stop moaning. Yay, we're out. Hello, Aldwincle. Aldwincle's a typical East Northants village, as in, hasn't really changed much over the years. Still got a cute and quaint charm about it, with some lovely old buildings, many of them conversions from trades that used to go on in the village 100 years ago or more. Always good to get here and escape from the woods. It's 12 o'clock, midday. Aldwincle Church. The building on the right hand side is the old church school. I don't think it's a school anymore. The school's a bit further down the road. I'm going to put up an old picture, not quite from the same angle, but you'll see the building clearer in this old picture. It's sort of hidden away now behind this play area, but the building survives, just not a school anymore. Just heading out of Aldwincle now into the Nene Valley, where we'll trek along towards Wadenhoe. We're about halfway at this point. You have to excuse my shadow, sun so low, follows me everywhere. In the background is Wadenhoe Church, which we will be walking up to very soon for a cup of tea. It's quite interesting, in the tree in front of us there's two cormorants. Not something you generally expect to find around here, or at least I've never seen them here before. Seabirds. Oh, time for a break. I did go down in the mud. Thankfully the camera wasn't on. I'm now covered in mud on my backside. Yeah, a bit embarrassing, but these things happen when you get old. We're actually on the hill just above Wadenhoe, with Wadenhoe Church behind me, which we'll go and take a look around in a moment. But if you know Wadenhoe, you'll know where I am, sitting on one of the seats on the steep path up to the church, resting my bruised backside. Much needed. Wadenhoe Church. Like so many churches in the area, there are parts of it that are older than others. I think it's mostly back to 1200, 1300. Hasn't changed too much. Things like windows and roofs have been modernised, and inside's been modernised, but been a church here for at least, well, it probably does go back 800-900 years, possibly further. Beautiful location. There's a lot of archaeological sites around this church, a lot of them without any great conclusions. It's believed this raised area we're coming onto here, there used to be a castle here, but no one's too certain. But it does appear on some old maps as the site of an old castle. But they found Roman ruins here, and Roman finds that they've dug up, so there's been all sorts going on here for a very long time. Just looking down now on Wadenhoe. I'll just put up an old picture. There aren't many old pictures of Wadenhoe, surprisingly. This one probably goes back about 80-90 years. The building today On the right, relatively new, I think that's the village hall. But you can just make out the building with the chimney on, which matches up with the old one, which is the King's Head, or was the King's Head pub. The rest is hidden by trees. Lovely old unchanged street full of lovely cottages. Really nice any time of year. There's a picture from 100 years ago of the King's Head, and it hasn't changed hardly at all, as you can see, in comparison with today's King's Head. As the name suggests, the lane that drops down to the mill. You can't really come to Wadenhoe without dropping down Mill Lane to see the old watermill, which is what is in front of you there. I've put up a couple of old pictures from getting on for 100 years ago. Hasn't changed a lot. In these older pictures, it probably hadn't stopped working for more than about 20 or 30 years. It was probably more of a mill then than it was a des res, which is what it is now. It's a lovely spot, even prettier in the summer. Very nice. Just climbing up out of Wadenhoe along what used to be the High Street. The building on the right used to be the post office. Still got a post box. Still got the old sign as well. There's an old picture of this same scene and today's picture. This is the old Wadenhoe village green. Pretty much unchanged apart from the trees are bigger. And you'll notice in the corner on the left there's a war memorial, and in this old picture from the same spot there's no war memorial, because it was taken before the First World War, about 1908, 1910, something like that. Otherwise it hasn't changed. Always loved these cottages here. Absolutely lovely. No idea what their history is. Very nice buildings, well looked after. Right, heading back now from Wadenhoe towards the car, towards Lyveden. I'm not filming too much because I'm getting very low on battery and I want to save a little bit for the end. But yeah, nice trek through the woods here on a hard path, which is good, especially when the legs are aching. But yeah, well on the way home now, or well on the way back to the car. Right, reaching the finale now. Lyveden new build. Although it is what's known as Lyveden new build. It looks like a ruin, but it's not a ruin. If you've been here, you'll know the full story behind it. Belonged to the guy who owns Lyveden Manor, which is just down this track and still stands today, and he built it as a second home, as a summer house in the 1600s, only he never finished. This was as far as he got. It's not a ruin. This is just as far as he got, and he never finished it. He died. He was in debt. His successors had no money. It just never got finished, basically. It's a fantastic building. He's a God-fearing man. It's covered in religious icons and religious text that runs all the way around the building. He put a lot of time and money into it, but just ran out. And as I say, he died, so he couldn't finish it. But it was quite common in the 1600s for people who had big houses to build a second house, not only as a summer house, but somewhere to escape to when the main house was cleaned or maintenance was done. So it wasn't uncommon, but it's a strange one that it still stands, looked after by the National Trust. If you've not been, it's worth coming and seeing it in the summer and having a wander around inside. Kids will love it. You can dart in and out of rooms, and it's worth seeing. You have to pay a little bit of money, but nonetheless it's worth it. That's Lyveden new build. It's part of the moat that runs around Lyveden Manor. It's about as good a shot as I can get of the manor house through the trees. It's quite spectacular. Right, a couple of 100 yards to go, so that's done. Tick off another one. Yeah, have a good Christmas. Look after yourselves, be sensible, do the right things. It's been a hell of a year. Next year will be better. So yeah, Merry Christmas to one and all.